I just feel like making a short gun video because I recently purchased some P-Mags. I was thinking about getting some Lancer mags, right? That if I ever plan on bringing them into New Jersey, I gotta pin them. And since I frequently go home and whatnot, and I didn't even bring my AR with me, in the state that I'm currently in, I'm like, all right, I might, let me get them here because I can't even get them in Jersey. I can't even get a parts kit in Jersey, and then pin them with 15 rounds. And it pains me to have to destroy, basically destroy some PMags like that. It's like, right now you can get PMags, for cheap. I mean, the gun prices and everything are like cheap, I mean, you can get police trade-ins for like $350 plus 3 magazines. I'm like, oh man, that's sexy. I mean, it's just, all the type of stuff I wanted. And it's like, the one thing I hate about, all the gun control and everything is you never know how the laws are going to be. You never know whether they're going to change or not. And so when the situation's good and the prices are down and you can get 500 rounds of 9mm for, $100, steel cased ammo and stuff like that, like now is the time to buy. And I'm not trying to encourage like, a panic buy and everybody to go out and start buying. I think people who stocked up and already spent, $60 on one box of ammo or, an insane amount on PMags and stuff like that. Like, I think they're pretty fed up and irritated and pissed off, and they don't want to spend any more money. But truth be told, that was, you're stupid behind that went off and bought a $60, PMag. I'm saying now is the time to buy, right? Because you can get them for like, literally like $10, But like, being from the communist state of New Jersey, what frustrates me is like, we just got over the whole 10 round magazine ban that they wanted to impose on New Jerseyans. Like that was going to stop all of the crime, which the vast majority of it in New Jersey is, urban communities, black males, narcotics, drug trafficking, and all that other stuff. That's where the majority of the homicides are coming because nobody wants to address the socioeconomic issues that plague these communities, right? So they want to do this like Band-Aid thing on a hemorrhaging wound. It's so irritating. It's so intellectually dishonest, and it just irritates me. And then people stand up there and they act like they're genuinely concerned, and it's just total bullshit. It's total bullshit. But anyway, it's like you hear these people that jump up, these anti-gun people, it's hilarious hearing the women talk, gun violence against women and guns are the great equalizer. And as opposed to looking at it as a gun as a defensive tool from a woman being assaulted or from a woman being raped or beaten by her husband or something like that. They look at it like, guns are exclusively used by men against women in violent confrontations. And it's so intellectually dishonest. It's like, go tell Charlize Theron's mom about, how, she wished that she didn't have a gun or she wished that she had less bullets. But seriously speaking, like, the defensive aspect is just simply one component of the whole gun conversation. It's one component, the right to self-defense, right? And maybe I have a different view of it as an African American and the history and the legacy that the African Americans have in this country as it pertains to being incapable and unable and denied, their human basic right to self-defense. And then not only that, but not living in this state of delusion, which I consider white privilege, where you actually have white people who think it's a joke that tyranny can actually happen. African Americans have been exposed and experienced massive amounts of tyranny throughout this country's history, right? And it just blows my mind to hear white people actually jump up, and it's typically like upper middle class, suburban white women, jump up and act like, that tyranny can't happen here. Like your white world is so perfect and is just so, just nothing can happen. This can't happen here. Meanwhile, there's like stuff going on elsewhere in the world, Syria, Iran, Ukraine, freaking, Serbia, all this stuff where like, everything collapses, shit hits the fan, and, people wish they had an ability to defend themselves. Armed troops being sent in to shoot down, protesters and stuff like that. People act like, oh, that can't happen here. And then everybody's scratching their head about how come, the Ferguson police have AMRAPs. Why are they coming out there in full body armor and stuff? And I swear, it's like, when it happens to black folks, white people, they turn a blind eye and they think it's just a white versus black thing. And they're like, oh, that can't happen to us. And I'm like, you all really cannot comprehend how you've been screwed over by the white elite. You really can't comprehend how it's not a matter of race per se, but it's a matter of power. It's a matter of control. That's what it's about. But you all just, you can't seem to wrap your heads around that. You know what I mean? And even some of the people who jump up and they want to, and they're feeling what I'm saying right now, they're only feeling what I'm saying right now in a racial context. And meaning they're only threatened by the idea of, Obama taking their guns or a black man taking their guns. There's that othering component of who they perceive to be in power. I'm like, black people don't own no Wall Street. We don't own any Fortune 500 companies. When you go to an interview, it's not us on the other side of the desk, but yet they're so threatened by that. So even though they're agreeing with a large portion of what I'm saying, the context from which the lens through which they're viewing is a white racist racial lens. That's how they're viewing it. They're viewing it, this is America, rah, this is America, rah, and ain't no colored gonna take our guns, right? And that's how they're viewing it, which is it's like they're partially right in terms of the tyranny and everything else. But again, they look at it through a racial white lens. They don't look at it from, black people ain't the ones you got to worry about taking your guns. We're not the ones in positions of power. You got to worry about the other white folks. And it's not just white liberals. You got to worry about the people who are in power. It's like the movie The Purge. They don't want you having guns. They don't want you to be able to do, because if they got a master plan, Illuminati, muhaha, take over the world, okay, America is a problem as it pertains to that. With all the arms that are floating around and everything else like that. America is the last place where tyranny can take place only because of the Second Amendment. Only because of that. It's like, hey, you can try it if you want, but it's going to be a fight. It's going to be a fight. Versus the rest of the world that's signing all these armistice treaties and everything else where, they can't defend themselves. They running in, oh, please, give us guns. That's like the first thing that's done. Like what happened with Syria, right? What's his name? Al-Assad. Okay, he's taking over. All right. And he's, crushing his people, all the Sunni Muslims, because, he's an Alawite, he don't like them and everything else, right? And then what is the first thing that the U.S. says? Oh, we got to help them. We got to get them what? Weapons. So you arm them, but then try to disarm American people. You're trying to prevent tyranny over there, but yet disarm the American people as though, that wouldn't facilitate tyranny. And again, it's got to be a white privilege to sit around and act like, oh, this couldn't happen here. And it's like, here's what I don't like about the magazine bans and everything else. And why I personally believe there needs to be made an amendment to the Second Amendment where it's not just the right to bear arms. It's not just that, and the shall not be infringed part, but also the right to have effective means of defense. Because let's face it, you take all the, you say, oh, you can have arms. You take all the bullets away and then the arms are ineffective. It's the same thing that California did with the Black Panthers. Okay? They changed the laws, and then they said, oh, you can open carry, but you can't open carry a loaded firearm. You see what I'm saying? So you essentially make it, you know, everybody knows a gun without ammunition is a paperweight. Okay? That's what it is. Right? And so, you know, when you look at the law, you know, in California with the open carry with no loaded firearm, that was specifically designed because the Black Panthers, which if they were white, we'd be calling them the Tea Party. But the Black Panthers were walking around open carrying, and it scared the bejesus out of white people. Okay? Because they were threatened by armed black people. Black people who were sick and tired of being abused and brutalized. Okay? And so, when you look at any type of magazine ban today, right? Like how we have it in New Jersey or New York or California, any of these other states, when they reduce the capacity, all they're doing is reducing your ability to defend yourself against tyranny. Since they can't take your guns away, they just, let's reduce it all the way down. 10, a nice round number. Why 10? Right? Why not 1? Why not 1 bullet? Why not we just go back to ball and musket? You know, and I'm saying, you know, the military, right? The very people who would be sicked on the U.S. population, right? In a state of martial law or tyranny, they're going to have their 30-round magazines. Okay? They're going to have every bullet available to oppress, you know, a U.S. population or a town or a community or a city. They're going to have every bullet available. And here you got communities that have, you only have a 10-round magazine limit. Essentially, you've made the right to bear arms useless because you've crippled it. It's like trying to box with one arm behind your back against somebody who has 4 arms, right? I mean, that's essentially what you're doing, right? And then people make the stupid argument of, what are you saying? Going up against tanks and the U.S. has, F-35 fighter jets and aircraft carriers. What are you saying? That you're going to go up against all that? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, in terms of trying to conquer a group of people, right? Or oppress a group of people, you got to have boots on the ground, period. I direct you to Iraq. I direct you to Afghanistan, right? How long have we been here? How long have we been there with all our glorious tanks and F-35 fighters and everything else that the U.S. military has? How long has the U.S. been there, right? I mean, clearly they have superior technology, but at the end of the day, you got to have troops on the ground. And that's when you're going to get the guerrilla fighting and the door-to-door and all that other shit and all the, putting up an actual resistance. So anybody who makes the lame so what are you saying? That people should either have tanks or have thermonuclear devices? I mean, that's one hell of a straw man. Not to mention the fact that, again, any occupation requires occupation. Okay, so they gotta have boots on the ground, and you gotta have, people being handcuffed and locked up and thrown away, and they gotta breach and go in the houses and check them all and make sure there's no stash. You gotta do all that. You're not going to be able to conquer a group of people from the shore or with tanks and things like that. You gotta have troops on the ground. Now is the scenario of American tyranny highly unlikely? Yes, it's highly unlikely, right? Given where America is right now. Personally, I think if there was ever chaos broke out, it wouldn't be, the government versus the people type of situation. It would only turn and evolve into that if everything collapsed because of, some awful, god-awful disease or the financial system collapses. That's a big one. That's the most likely scenario. The financial system collapses and then there's rule without law, and the government is not who you're going to be trying to defend yourself against, even though martial law will probably be imposed and some dictator, somebody else, whoever's the most powerful will come to power and then try to impose what they want to impose. But I'm saying you're going to have to defend yourself against other people, other people who are now scavenging for resources and guns and food and everything else. Like, that's what you'd have to go up against. You know, it's like the movie The Road, which is a perfect example of the type of psychological mindset, survival mode that people go into when they're trying to survive. You'd have to worry more about your neighbor than you'd have to worry about the omnipresent government. I'm saying if things were to actually, you know, collapse, which rolls into the preppers who are not prepping to fight the government, but they're prepping for, you know, the collapse of this very fragile, system that we exist in, where everything is provided for, you know, on an, just-in-time basis. You know that they only have 3 days of groceries in any grocery store. There's only about 3 days of food. If they don't get restocked within 3 days, the food in the grocery store, every grocery store in America, runs out. Runs out. I mean, you see this even when, let there be in a state where there's actually like, natural disasters like Florida with hurricanes. Okay? Oh, let a big Category 4 hurricane coming. All of the plywood in the Home Depot is gone. All of the water bottles are gone. All of the canned food in the store is gone. All the milk is gone. This is what you get in a state of emergency where in states like that. So, if there was anything that was to disrupt that very fragile system, okay, in America, right? You would be dealing with like, a zombie apocalypse situation without the zombies. You get what I'm saying? It would be The Road. The Road is, that's a perfect example of a movie. Or, a better example would be the new video game for Xbox One and PS4 called The Division. Just type in The Division, PS4, Xbox One, and watch the trailer on YouTube of the game. That is the system. That is the most likely example of what would happen, and in terms of why you would need to have firearms to protect yourself, not from the government but from other people. But in terms of just addressing the government and tyranny, okay, that is what the Second Amendment was designed for. You got a bunch of white men who left Europe, came to America, felt that they were being taxed in tyranny and everything else. The irony is everybody runs around and calls, the Middle Easterners terrorists and everything. But technically speaking, if you look at the American revolutionaries, relative to the British Empire, they were terrorists. That's what they were. Right? But everybody's like, America, this is America. And then they want to talk about another group of people and talk about how much terrorists they are. I was like, the founding fathers were terrorists. All right? They broke away from the crown. They essentially stole America from the British crown, even though the British crown stole America from the Native Americans. But let me not get into all of that. Right? I'm just saying, it's like a pot calling the kettle black. Okay? But when it comes to tyranny, the way you defend against tyranny is you put yourself in a position to say, hey, don't try it. It's the same as with, nuclear proliferation. Not to say that, people just have to proliferate nuclear weapons, to the nth degree, right? But it is a deterrent to know that, hey, I might not want to try it because I might get messed up. Okay, I might not want to shoot my nukes at Russia because Russia might shoot their nukes back. And the same premise and concept goes for people carrying concealed. I might not want to go out here and rob people because I live in a state where people actually carry. I don't know who's carrying. Right? And we see this scenario play out all the time. I have the NRA app, and they're very good at posting when people defend themselves with firearms. But it's amazing. It's amazing. Once you have that app and you're actually looking at it, it is amazing at how much the media does never covers people actually defending themselves with firearms. It's never covered. It's always and this person was killed and they were tied up and murdered, or they were robbed and why'd you have to shoot the cab driver and all. Like, they always give that example, but they never give the stories of, hey, here's a person who defended themselves with a firearm. Somebody tried to break into the house and they shot back. and the person ran, or the person, tried to get away after they got shot and they stumbled and collapsed and died 5 feet away from the front door. Okay, they never give those stories. You never hear them in television, and you never hear them in the media, right? I used to think that, when people said, the liberal media, that it was just like, what do you call that? Just some type of derogatory term. You know what I mean? But, in reality, it very much is the liberal media. Now, there's a lot of social policies in terms of, liberals that I agree with, but, they have just as much as an agenda as Fox News. It's just as much of an agenda. And again, I don't know what I consider myself now, but I consider myself a thinker, which would probably fall in the category of independent. If it makes sense, I roll with it. If it doesn't make sense and if people can't prove their case or prove their argument, I don't go with it. Okay? That's just how it is. I believe in people making livable wages. I believe in there being economic opportunities. I believe in having, jobs here and not overseas. These are the things I believe in. Okay? And that's just to touch on, the surface. But in terms of the Second Amendment and people defending themselves and fighting against tyranny, I mean, America, other than Switzerland, is really the only a place in the world where people are actually allowed, legally, and there's actually a constitution and supports it and says that, where people are actually legitimately allowed to defend themselves. And not only defend themselves, but deter tyranny. It's amazing at how people can actually sit there and scream about how the rest of the world needs democracy, but then in America, you have people who are actively fighting against the democracy. What is a democracy? Power of the people, right? And how do people have power? They got to minimally have the power to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. That's what they have to have. Even though I already know that we don't really live in a democracy, we live in a plutocracy, which is controlled by powerful elites who have vast amounts of wealth and resources and corporations and money. Right? And personally, I believe that after this, whatever future collapse is going to be, and why they want to disarm the population, if there was a Muhaha Illuminati plan, is that you will have a situation where corporations run things and private military corporations have more money and wealth than the government. Like Apple currently has more money and wealth than the government. And when you have a situation like that, it is about the money. Because money is the medium of exchange, and money is what gives you the control of any nation and situation. What did that Rothschild say? Give me control of a nation's wealth and I care not who makes the laws. Exactly. Bingo. Which is why, as it pertains to black people and getting us out of, our predicament and our situation and our poverty, it is about money. It is not about welfare. It is not about going out and voting democratically. It is not about hating white people and screaming that white people are the devil or that they're racist or whatever, right? It's not about that. All racism is rooted in economics. That is what the premise and the basis of racism is. It's rooted in economics. So, in order for black people to go out there and be competitive and where you won't have poverty and crime and everything else that spills into the white community and then white people jump up and bitch and cry about, black people are going to have to accumulate some sort of wealth. Right? And when white people have majority of the wealth, we're going to need some jobs and economic opportunities and everything else, which ultimately would mean that black people will be out there competing with white people, for jobs, economic opportunities, resources and everything else, which is something that, again, white supremacy doesn't want at the end of the day, ultimately, when you look at the big picture of things. Right? So I don't know how black folks and white folks are supposed to get along, in America. It's very much a situation of, yeah, black guy, as long as you all just, keep quiet, stay in the background and play your subordinate role, everything is gravy. And that's not the way that it should be. But I already know that that's the name of the game. That's the nature of the beast. Right? So it's about black people going out there and being competitive, getting off on, that tip. But, when I get off of the economic racial component and I just focus on, you know, America and the ideals of America and we're all the same and it's America, right? When I get on that and I just focus on that and I leave race out and all that other stuff, even though it's a big part of the situation, a big part of the problem, and nobody wants to address it, the Second Amendment is probably one of the most brilliant pieces of documentation, legislation, whatever you want to call it, that has ever been written for any group of people. I'm saying just purely as a concept of people being able to govern themselves and voting for representatives and being able to defend themselves against a government that becomes too big, too bloated, too powerful, and tries to control, the people who are in no position, to challenge them, or challenge, a dictator or any type of official that abuses power, right? Because power corrupts absolutely. Right? Is that the expression? I believe that's the expression. Right? Nobody is exempt from, abusing power. Nobody. Power corrupts absolutely. So, anyway, that's my video. This is New Jersey Gun Laws out.